All right, we are live again to chat about all manner of things. Yes, today we're joined by one of our friends from like middle school, high school era, back when we used to play Warhammer 40,000. Our friend Chad's here. Nice to have you, Chad.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Yeah,
um,
no, it is fun to be chatting. We were recently looked at we're sharing some photos from the early 2000s of when we were playing Warhammer, and we all looked pretty
There
weird.
are many regrettable decisions.
But it is fun to look back at
what
times.
edition of the
It
game would
is.
that have been like the third edition? Or
Nah.
Yeah, so when we were doing it, it was probably third, early fourth.
that
Yeah, I would say like because third edition wasn't that was released in like 1997 to like 98. So my guess is
And
it was fourth-ish, perhaps,
I
early
think
fifth.
fourth was like somewhere around 2005
Yeah, okay. So I
or
mean, I guess
2003, I think.
so. Yeah, it could have been fourth. Yeah,
I don't
but
think we were
I don't
using
know.
those rules, but
Yeah, if we, it's debatable as to how correctly we were playing anything, but it's fine. It's not
I
important.
guarantee it was way off.
Yeah, but it's not important.
not really.
Like we told so many incredible narrative stories with our unpainted or white prime miniatures, pushing them around the
E-tron.
flat green board. Incredible. But isn't that how everyone starts? Perhaps not, but a lot of us
Well,
do, I think.
I feel now there are a lot more avenues and opportunities.
I dropped out for a second.
Oh, that's fine. I feel now there are a lot more avenues to get involved in a hobby that it get into it. They just you about it on Instagram or something. Like, it in painting more. I don't know. um,
Yeah, you're not limited to
Yeah,
like
it's
looking
definitely
in
more
like
available than it
book.
used to be, especially with like Space Marine game and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's like lower price ways to get in, like Kill Team.
That's true.
and I mean,
There's a lot
you
more
can buy
ways.
the blind box yes at Target now.
Incredible. Yeah, but just the fact that some things are at Target or like Barnes and Noble has some of their own like little starter games and even
Some of those are
Blitzball
better than the
Yeah,
official
or
ones.
Blitzball.
Blitzbowl. I don't remember if it's ball or bowl. But yeah, no, it is much different. But that's fun. And
I mean,
despite
I remember. I think the first time we played it was I had a Farseer, a Squad of Guardians, a Warwalker, and maybe something else.
I mean, I think around then
that's
I
a
would
fine
play with an
army.
Imperial Guard army. Like I had probably like
Army, air
auto, but
quotes.
Haller and Desert Raiders, and then like a squad or two of the plastic the city jungle fighters.
Catachan, jungle
Yeah, that
fighters
were
that look so
painted.
bad.
Yeah, they're pretty.
There's some Rattling Snipers too, I think.
I
Oh
did,
yeah.
yeah, but and a basilisk. It was
Hmm.
pathetic.
Yeah, Basilisk. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's fine. Everyone starts somewhere. It is funny to think about, reflect back on that and how we're still all involved in the hobby in one fashion or another, but not quite the same. But that's fine. It it changes and shifts over time, and there are a lot of niches within it to fit however you want to engage with the hobby, which is nice.
Chad, are you would you be interested in actually playing the game again?
I mean, I could try it. I keep playing with the idea of getting my wife into it, but that hasn't been going well. So
Yeah, I almost feel like you would be better suited to play like Kill Team else. Like I don't know a few times I played some of the more recent editions of Warhammer 40,000, like my heart just wasn't in it per se. It's like I didn't want to have to have like a whole case full of miniatures, put them out on the battlefield, and then not remember all their special rules or all the new objectives and all this other shit that you have to get. And then when you're playing against someone who kind of knows the, like, you just kind of feel like that you, not that you're being cheated, but like you're certainly, it's a very one-sided affair where even if, like, say you were to fail or even make relatively smart decisions, you're not going to do well.
That's one of the reasons I was looking like any of those Blood Bowl teams. Like I might be able to get her in that way,
Blood Bowl
but
Yeah.
we just
is
haven't done it yet.
fun. Yeah, Blood Bowl is a good game. I would recommend playing sevens. So the version of it where you have only like half a team and the board
Yeah.
smaller, and like it's still pretty
Yep.
much the same game. It's just,
A bit shorter and
yeah, because first time you play real Blood Bowl, like, takes fucking forever and like you don't feel like you did anything. And while it is, I feel, an engaging rule system, and it certainly rewards you for planning stuff out, and like you can feel as if you played well or made good decisions, but you can also feel really bad about your.
it really punishes new players, like such that like if you're excited, like, oh man, I'm about to score, and then like you start your turn trying to like make that last pass, or all you need to do is make that one dodge roll to like move into the end zone, and you like roll the one and you fumble and your turn's over. You didn't even stand up any of your down players, and like, yeah, it's a game that you need to be at least moderately aware of the rules. Otherwise, you could just so easily get crushed and it'd be kind of a negative play experience. But
So
Yeah.
sort of
it's
similar to
still
Warhammer
good.
40,000.
That's fair. But it's a bit more of a board game, which is probably good.
And smaller scale, so you only need a few minis. Like
That's
Yeah,
nice.
like
yeah,
when we for years ago we played Blitz, or whatever the smaller game is called. And that I feel is very approachable. It has a fun and engaging rule set. You don't need a lot of more.
Well, all that stuff is nice though. Like if you start playing that, you just use essentially half of a team, and you could
Mhm.
kind of get in that, try some teams, paint those models, and then if you want to then advance to seven or Blood Bowl, like you already maybe have half a painted team and so forth. So it's like I feel it's a pretty easy way to
I mean, Chad, you
dip your
already
toe
have an
into it.
orc team painted, so like you've done
you
it.
do.
You could just
You're
do it.
ready.
You could just,
Um,
I just need to convince her to play with me.
yeah.
I've never actually played a game.
Well, it's worth it. It's fun. Well, yeah. Um, I guess with all that said, we wanted to have you on here to chat a little bit about some of the new Eldar releases. So, with that in mind, are people ready for me to uh, give the second introduction and start the podcast portion of this? All right, so I'm going to hit record in a second here. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dragged into Turbolasers, a miniature wargaming podcast from the people behind Between the Bolter and Me. I'm your host, Eric Wire, and I'm here with my two brothers, Adam Wire,
hey everybody.
Greg Wire,
Hey everyone.
and I'm excited that we're here with one of our high school friends and longtime Eldar fans, Chad. Nice to have you here, Chad.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, really excited to have you here. And recently or at least it's relatively recently, Games Workshop has finally kind of finished the process of updating some of the Aspect Warriors and other various Eldar models. And we thought it would be fun to kind of go back to sort of the old style of this podcast where we talked a bit more about miniature releases. And with all these Eldar models being released, we thought we would, yeah, have our friend Chad here who's at least played Eldar for many years, or at least when we in middle school, high school, when we started the hobby, we would play the game, and all of us kind of shifted away from the playing aspect. But Chad, yeah, you're still involved in the hobby, both through like reading some of the Black Library stuff as well as building and painting models, correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty versed on the Black Library updates, and then additionally, I don't play anymore really, but yeah, I enjoy to build and paint.
Yeah, no, I mean that's nice. I feel certainly we don't play a ton of games, but a lot of what drives me in the hobby anyway is kind of the hobby aspect, in the sense of the being able to relax, like by assembling a miniature, painting one, or reading one of their novels, or just kind of thinking or trying to write stories or something within the setting. And I think probably a lot of people end up doing that, particularly as everyone, as you continue to get older and jobs and families and all those things, like it can be harder to consistently set aside time to cart around the big army to a game store, this or that, and consistently play. But the the like actual hobby aspect is still fun and kind of what pulled me to begin with. But yeah, so with that said, the Eldar, I've actually finally gotten some new models. What do you think about that, Chad? Like it certainly seems like it was a long time coming.
Certainly.
Oh, I mean, certainly, I think the first spiders were from 1994 or so.
Yeah, they.
Yeah,
Like,
God.
Yeah, I don't think they
yeah,
were ever.
they never got a refresh.
And
Yeah.
they, though, I guess, am I correct? Like they were some aspect warriors that came later in the line of aspect warriors and stuff. Because if I think back to some of like the older, like some of the original just good sculpts of like the fire dragons, like they went through so many iterations that all kind of look the same. And actually, I think I have some of the old. Let me see if I can find a date on.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, if
kind
I'm
of
not
curious.
wrong, I think Warp Spiders came out right around third edition.
That I mean that sounds right, or end of second with that like second edition codex or something.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how a lot of these archetypes and aspect warriors, so like kind of the elite aspect of Eldar, have been around largely unchanged since kind of their foundation and some of those Jess Goodwin concept sketches and some of those original models. And uh, it's always been sort of a weird release schedule in that some of them just were left alone, particularly the warp spiders, like you said. And having said that, most of the original sculpts, the original Jess Goodwin sculpts, were actually quite good. So even though some of the ranges were kind of let alone, it wasn't the biggest travesty, other than having to work with maybe metal models or eventually garbage fine cast models. But despite that, some of the aspect warriors and such seem to be like just every couple years they would release a new box of them, like new sculpts, like the striking scorpions, the howling banshees in particular, would just seemingly continuously get resculpted, and often they
They were like
wouldn't
a
even
side
change
grade.
much. Yeah, just like they made new ones, and they were a bit different just to do it to get people to buy more models, which I mean, that makes sense from a business perspective of just wanting to continue to sell the same types of models again and again. But it still seems curious that there would have been an easy opportunity to make some of the lesser known ones, but they just didn't.
I mean, they're not Space Marines.
So
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's
I
so
found
true.
what I think these were the original dragons. On their base, it's 1990. So
Okay.
if that's true with
I could see
warp
the
spiders,
warp spiders being a little bit later, but
they got my Fire Dragon say 1992,
huh. um,
and yeah, same for the Warp Dragons or Warp Spiders. Sorry.
okay.
because the original ones, they still sort of have some of the Mark Eldar things where like, they have almost like, that's good small butts. Their poses were pretty um widespread poses. So I think some of those aspects were pushed even further for some of the newer where their legs would get even hard, weapons would get even bigger.
Standing on even larger rocks.
And
Hero Rock.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. Were you surprised, Chad, that they finally remade a few of these in like modern plastics, particularly the warp spiders, but they also what made new swooping hawk models. They made a new
Fire Dragons.
Armin.
They did Fire Dragons. They did Striking Scorpions were a kill team,
Oh,
and
that's
they
true.
basically capped off redoing all the Phoenix Lords except for Grindrus from the Striking Scorpions.
yeah, I wonder
Yeah, so
why they haven't done that one. Because they
So from
even
what I
made
heard,
go ahead.
is the sculptor left the company
mm,
and didn't have it done in time.
Huh, okay.
oh, okay. That's interesting. Because I know,
That's Reddit rumors, like, but
yeah, I mean it's tough because now like their sculpting team is so large that back in like when we started there were probably like a handful of people, so it was kind of easy to tell like, oh, the Jess Goodwin sculpted the new Guardians, or Brian Nelson made one of the characters, or Juan Diaz made these Howling Banshees or something. But now like
I
there's
mean, at
such
this point,
large
they're like
teams.
2 years out too. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're sculpting these things like 2 years ahead of time.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. So like some of it, like you wonder if some of these aspect warriors had just been around for a long time and they just didn't see a need to release them yet, like when there are more space marines to push out, so like why even bother?
I mean, you always
But
need a new Primaris lieutenant. Like
yeah, I mean always.
The sh-
There aren't enough of them, to be honest.
seriously.
I sort of feel for the Eldar really. I feel like every few years they release a handful of plastic kits. Years ago, they finally redid the plastic Guardians, like made it so they're like heavy weapons. At least some of them were included in the
Yes.
bottle. And while you could kind of claim that it wasn't a major update, like if you really compare the models side by side, like they were significantly over, and they added a lot of additional options and variations, such that I would say they're significantly nicer than the older school.
Or
They still
even
kind of
just, yeah.
they
I
still
was just
have the
gonna say
hallmark of the old,
the design.
like wide leg stances, almost more humanoid than maybe the Eldar are typically described. Like they're not necessarily that tall thing. Like they overall looked
Uh
pretty
huh.
good.
Well, I feel a big element for some of the stuff is just by updating the kits with like their digital designs and whatnot. Just the quality of the casts and such are better. The placements, mold lines, so much better. Seam lines, the stuff just goes together better. Like anyone who's like tried to assemble like an older plastic model kit from like the early 2000s, like the old Crute models or whatnot, it's kind of you're in for a shock going back to that compared to the newer things. So even if not that much has changed, just having that modern, those higher tolerances and stuff does make a pretty big difference in just sort of the ease of assembly, the process, which maybe you've had some recent experience with any of that, Chad.
Yeah, 100% with that, with especially new Guardian kits you were talking about. So I have one of the new Guardian kits put together. One of my biggest pain with the old ones, which actually you guys put together for me, my first Guardian kit,
Okay.
probably
The little
back in like
fins.
2002 or whatever. Those backpack veins,
Oh, the
Yeah,
little yeah boy.
those little things that stick up. Yeah, so they're now molded in. Like it's not a separate piece, and that makes it so much easier.
that's nice.
I mean, I get when they were trying to get to plastic and
Mhm.
like they were trying to you can customize whatever, but those
Yeah.
little veins were terrible.
Yeah, and just some of the stuff like how probably you'd put the two halves of the bodies together and like there would just be a huge seam there because
Yeah.
they didn't actually
Oh,
fit that well.
yeah, and like you guys were saying, like they are so much better at looking at where the mold lines will be,
Mhm.
and then to make them easier to shave off than the old school ones where they were in, frankly, like terrible positions half the time. Like,
And like some of the stuff like now it's like the kits are better designed, fit together with higher tolerances that even if you don't really remove the mold lines, but just make sure you remove all the gates and that stuff, like they can assemble and at least from like a foot away, like they look good, they're fine. Whereas I feel the older ones, if you did the same process, they look substantially worse because the stuff just doesn't fit together as well and all that. So, like, there is a big jump just in that. And therefore, I feel there's still a lot of value in modernizing kits, even if there isn't a huge shift in design that even if when you look at them, it sort of makes me think about playing like a remake of a video game, like, oh, this like Resident Evil remake, that's exactly like what it was in the PlayStation. And then you go back and play that PlayStation, and it's like, Jesus Christ, like it's how I remembered it, but it is not like it at all. It is
yeah, so one
much.
thing that I think we've lost though is the adaptability of posing.
Hmm.
These newer models are generally almost monopose.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of them I feel, and they've been going this direction for a while. That maybe they have certain bodies that, like, oh, there are two ways you could assemble them, like two positions of like the gun pointing up or pointing down, but like there are only two ways to do it. So in some sense, they are kind of a monopose thing. They don't have the as much of the ball and socket type thing that allowed more flexibility in poses, which is a shame in some sense, but then also for I think the vast majority of people, particularly if you're just starting out in the hobby, like you don't necessarily have the wherewithal to like put together good poses. Like it's very easy to just throw them together. Like I need to assemble this squad in 2 hours to play that game, and it can result in like, well, they're together, but like they look really odd, or like the head is not quite on right, and this and that. So I feel from a product design standpoint and Games Workshop wanting people to see the product in their best light in this fashion makes it such that it's much harder to like just do a bad job because like by and large the poses make sense other than their proclivity to like be man spreading and stuff. But if we
Well,
remove that aspect, like
yeah, you could almost argue that the newer models are, yeah, they're more like the old monopose metal models where you had like careful different poses. Generally look pretty good. One of the like I'm looking at one of the I think the original fire dragons and comparing it to sculpts, and in general, tails are very, very close. Like they look pretty much like the same design. The biggest change I feel is old models on their helmets, like around their mouth area, they had like slots, like vertical slots, which almost made it look like they had like teeth or something, which
mm.
are completely absent in newer Fire Dragon sculpts. I sort of miss that because those little spots made them look much, much
It looks
fiercer.
like one of the options, looking at some of the fire dragons, one of the helmets has that design. So I
Okay.
wonder if there is some
Yeah, it's just
variation.
pretty X arc.
Is it just
Okay. Okay. But like, and I wonder, like, they tend to be pretty, try to really honor old concept sketches and stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if they went back to some of Jess Goodwin's original concepts to try to redo and reuse some of that stuff. Um, Actually, towards that end, I think I remember that, you know, how each month, or at least most months, they'll give out promotional models if you go to a GW store and spend like $100 or something. Wasn't this month or a soon month gonna be giving out one of these fire dragons? Is that
pretty
true?
sure
Was
it's this month?
Yeah, it's a unique model, single sprue.
That seems,
Yeah, so the
yeah,
Fire
seems cool.
Dragon like XR whatever.
That's the Phoenix Lord.
The Phoenix Lord, he has like the little visor.
Yeah.
All the rest up they don't. I kind of miss that because it
Well, looking at the one fire dragon thing, there's a picture that has showing one with an axe and like a fusion pistol, and above it, there's one that has the little slit like design. It would probably be
they get
impossible to find because their website's terrible.
I'm just
Um,
looking at the
I mean, a
oh
re
yeah,
unboxing.
there's the
wait a minute.
box. You have it. It was one of the photos that had three.
Oh, one of it has three.
It
One
was
has like
black
a
with a red helmet.
larger looking. Yeah, so it has like one slot.
Oh yeah.
It has like one, but like the old
They no
models,
longer show the sprues anymore, so like maybe there are more, like there are a series of heads that look like that. I don't know. Well, Chad, you're opening up the box. You can look at
Like I
those
said, I'm
sprues.
good up right now.
Well, with that said, or any of any of the releases, like were you particularly excited to see one of the Aspect Warriors finally be redesigned, or if not that, think one like was looks particularly good and was like the best looking of them?
I mean, most excited to see redesigned Worst Fighters.
Yeah, I
just
guess just the
because
fact that they
it's
did it,
been forever. Yeah.
yeah, is
So
and I guess
actually,
I would probably agree with that too. Just the fact that they did it finally
if
is
we
cool.
if we
Yeah, I
look at
mean, Warspers are one of the only ones that only ever had one model.
One, yeah. And they were like basically what, like probably
There
only
was like
three models, two
there were
regular
three
sculpt
poses, but two of them like
were
are
basic
pretty much
poses.
just like
Yeah,
being different ways.
yeah.
so what's your thought? My general thought is of a lot of these Eldar models, like I think the sculpts in general are quite good. Their poses are a little bad, most of them. But one thing that I find strange, you look at the heads that don't have helmets, they're surprisingly
Guys,
large. Like if you
I honestly
compare,
hadn't looked at that.
they're surprisingly
So the ones
large.
without helmets are supposed to be the I don't know how you say it, Inari,
Oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
but
the like death of God thing. Death.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
if you look at,
That dude's head's huge.
yeah, like if you look at the pictures on their website for the fire dragons, they have a leader one with an axe and like a fusion pistol. Like
Hmm.
head's huge,
To me, it
huge,
looks like
and
his forehead wouldn't actually fit within the helmets,
yeah.
like the
But
coned
see, like
helmet.
what to me, what is strange about this, like I think if you, well, there is obviously a huge variation in, like, for instance, humans on our planet Earth.
Oh
But in
damn.
general, if you look at pictures of humans, often their heads are kind of big. So if anything, this has almost more of a human look to me than like a lot of the newer like Imperial Guard sculpts, where like literally every single Imperial Guard, they look like soccer players or something, where they're absurdly tall, really small heads, and like it's just
Yeah.
kind of weird. Like they don't look like, they look like what could be possible, but not what most normal people
Mhm.
look like. To the
But this
point
is the
where it
41st
almost looks
millennium.
weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so looking at his fire dragon kit, like the heads without helmets are the same size as the heads with helmets.
Okay.
Like there's no like shrinking. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so and I think that's honestly it might even be true for the new Plastic Guardian. Like, I was looking at that, and it sort of surprised me that the helmet is relatively large. I don't know if I didn't quite remember they looked this weird as this fire
I
dragon.
find cuz to me, yeah, the heads look a bit like overly big, but like that's always been kind of an Eldar design that they
Oh
have these
yeah.
conical helmets that are huge. So like to me, looking at the regular helmeted ones, like it doesn't seem weird. Like because you could imagine like, oh, that's pretty thick armor or whatnot, and like the head is and there's padding in there such that the head is a natural size. But when you see these with like the top portion removed, it's clear that oh, the armor portion is like really thin. There isn't much padding in there. So like it kind of removes sort of the suspension of disbelief, which is the same thing for like some of like even like the newer Space Marine Terminator models that like when you see them just fully armored, maybe their arms look a little bit too high, like their shoulders in relationship to the body. But since the armor is so bulky and big, you can kind of suspend that disbelief. Like, they fit in there somehow. It's so bulky. Who knows? But I'm sure it works. But then when they put like an unhelmeted head, you're like, oh, well, actually, it doesn't work anymore. Like, now that I see how they intended the head to be there, it's weird. These aren't as weird as Terminators, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
But that same design, so I've recently been painting up Howling Banshees from the Blood of the Phoenix set.
Which was a couple
Yeah, I
years ago
originally
now.
bought with Greg, like, oh god, it's like 8 years ago.
Oh my god, is
So
it
long
really
ago.
that long? Oh my god, that's
Yeah, it was
crazy.
like 27, 18,
Oh my god.
2019,
Okay,
somewhere around
yeah.
there.
So, huh?
Um, so it's same thing though, where it's when they brought in the idea of the Inari, where
Yeah,
doing the no helmet design.
yeah,
They didn't really shrink the heads.
yeah. It's interesting. The thing that I like these, as we kind of mentioned, like the sculpts are good. Like lots of talent went in there, and they clearly wanted to keep the same kind of model design and aesthetics and
Hmm.
wonky poses and stuff, which I can understand to a point. The thing that looks weirdest to me, even more than their big heads, is like how their legs attach to the body. Like they have the smallest butts. There's like
Yeah, they
no
kept
groin
that.
area,
They
and
kept that.
like their waists are so incredibly thin. It makes more sense knowing that their armor is also really thin based on the helmets. Like that's mesh armor. That's the incredible aspect of it. It's paper thin. So knowing that it's paper thin makes this anatomy make a bit more sense, but it's just kind of awkward looking. I mean,
Yeah, they definitely did
it's an
not
alien.
change the proportion thing.
Yeah. And like to me it seems like that's something they could have modernized a bit. Like they could look at it like we get the intent of these, like maybe the old sculpts were a bit weird, but like we know if you had the time and it wasn't just one person doing all the sculpts and you had these digital assets, like you could have changed that, and but they didn't do that. And that is weird to me, but in some sense I almost wonder if it's like too many cooks in the kitchen. Like they probably have so many people involved in design that there isn't like a one cohesive person that makes sure it all fits, or they just don't care.
Like if you look going back to the head sizes, like if you look at the new striking um with that plastic kit, they have a whole heads where most of the helmet is on, and whoa, some of those heads. Like I think
I mean, they're really nice sculpted
yeah,
heads.
they are. Like the eyes are well sculpted and detailed and everything. But it's like I sort of feel if you're assembling the I would implore you not to not be
Yeah, it's it's sad that they're so nice looking, like in sculpting, but like you just you would want to use them sparingly just because of that,
looks
or I would.
Oh, I do just because I suck at painting eyes.
well, I mean
I
it
mean, that's
is also
fine. Like
another
these are
reason
So
tiny
like
eyes. They're
I
gonna
would
be
rather
so
paint
I
the
small.
tend to
eyelid.
go helmeted.
Yeah, that.
But it's also weird the Spring Scorpions, they did a kill team where you get a like basically two 5-man squads
Mhm.
instead of like a normal.
Like 5 or something.
Do I
Yeah.
remember this correctly? The striking scorpions were always the more heavily armored. Like,
Yes.
is it just me, or does their armor look the same as like all the other Eldar armor? Like, it certainly doesn't look bulkier. It doesn't like maybe there's an extra like
I
extra
think they look
ribbing or
roughly the same.
something on, but and then
No, I gotcha. But like the Striking Scorpions I have from
or I mean they don't really look
2004,
like they have it
2005,
either.
they were so tiny.
Okay. So it's better in that respect.
It's
Yeah, I
better
don't know.
now than it
I
used to be.
Yeah.
also I also hate how the striking scorpion all of their footballs have scopes.
Yeah.
What what's going on there? And like I really wish most of the
They
old
care about accuracy,
yeah,
Adam.
most of the old Eldar sculpts, the magazine for the weapons were these round circular discs that was seated in the back of the weapon, and
Yeah, they do.
then they then switched to like the banana magazine, and I can only think of like one model that they maintained the circular magazines in the back, and it was a fucking Inquisitor holding an Eldar's weapon. So it's like I wish they would go back to that, because that allowed for a much more compact weapon. And like, to me, these
So
strikes
which circular magazines are we talking about?
let's see if I can find, like, a lot of the old metal warlocks and stuff. Like, there's a warlock with holding up a spear and a pistol, and on the back of, like, they haven't done this for like since that one. Yeah, that's they're holding up a spear. If you look above their hand, there's this round circular thing with like
Oh, you're right.
notches cut out.
Yep.
That was like the actual, what I understood, like the actual magazine weapon, and it resulted in a much back look weapon. Oh yeah, like, and a lot of, even like the older Guardians, they had something like that as well.
Yeah, the
And
old
It's
like
actually
second
one of the
edition
things.
design.
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
It's actually one thing that I don't like about the new Azerman
Oh yeah,
Oh
is
yeah,
so
yeah.
yes,
He's a
like,
that
good
he has
example of
the sickle magazines. Like,
it's just like
getting in the
taken
way
out
of
of
his vision.
everything. Yeah, like,
yeah,
that is something that, well, like, I guess,
You could just cut it off and sand it down, and I don't like. Would you even know? Like, I think that is like he's the perfect example of kind of them taking this to an extreme and just the absurdity of that. Like it, why would it be like that?
so for instance, when I converted an Eldar model 2020, and I haven't finished painting the model, but for that model, I converted them. I converted one of their little pistols to have one of those magazines, and I imagine this is one of the smallest ever that anyone ever made for the Eldar.
Yeah, I think
Like,
it
it's
likely is.
very tiny. I sculpted a little like pickle magazine back, and I really,
This year, like someone contacted me on Instagram asking about some of our your older work on the Dark Eldar and hoping that more of it would be done sometime. For this one, you even made their holster. You designed it such that that circular protrusion would like slot in properly.
I
But
tried.
yeah, you should trying
I
to
forgot
finish
how
this would
small
be.
that was.
So small. Like, I should really paint them, because, and I mean, I
You should.
they still have some aspects that are weird, and like, we're doing it how I, but they're about as tall as like Eris, like Mer.
And
Part of
this
that
used
is,
one of the those bone Age of Sigmar bone.
I think it should be taller.
yeah, I think they probably, I was back then.
You should paint them. Like it would be fun to pull some of like kind of the Ink 28 styling to Eldar. They can show up on Vastarian, Adam, for
I
their
should
own eldritch purposes.
I should
Also, Chad, are you in the process of building or painting any of the newer models?
so I'm working my Howling Banshees, at the moment.
Okay.
Then I intend to go to the Warp Spiders.
Yeah, hell yeah, warp spiders.
The old school ones, like there were, I think, 3 poses, and then the X arc.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
Well, what do you think about the Phoenix Lord? They never had a model of the Phoenix Lord, right?
So that's kind of funny because back when they were doing the uh, kind of like loose rules where you can make your own models,
Mm-hmm.
I was making rules for a Warp Spider or Phoenix Lord,
Had there been a
but
Phoenix Lord in name, they just never made a model for it, or was there just never a Phoenix Lord?
there was only a mention in one story that came out 2 or 3 years ago
Okay.
where they like someone said they found the armor,
Okay.
but that was it. The other one that's still missing is I think it's Draystana. It's the Shining Spheres Phoenix Sword.
Yeah,
That's
no one
fair.
remembers.
That's fair.
I mean, they came out pretty recently, but
They
Yeah,
released.
it's true.
They came out more. They were a newer Phoenix Sword thing. They made more. Then even them, they released several different
I mean,
versions.
Shining Spheres have only had 3 releases
I mean,
since the beginning.
I think everyone misses the days
Warp
when they had
spiders have only had 2.
the plastic the plastic metal hybrids of the original Shining Spears. I
Uh,
think everyone loves them and thinks of them the most.
Yeah, they're not top heavy at all.
no,
Right.
never.
That was what
Like
peak design looked.
it's like the old school Fire Prism tank that was just all metal up top, all plastic on the bottom. That was never going
Oh,
to cause any
God.
issues.
Yeah, never. I just love metal plastic hybrid kits. Like they are just so good. Like remember the original Land Raider Crusader? Talk about a beautiful talk about a beautiful piece of engineering.
So of all
uh
plastic, which which do we think is best?
hmm.
I'd need to look
So
at
I
it.
do like the new Warspire one.
I was
Like his
preliminary without looking at any of them too carefully. That warp spider dude is
The
pretty
Warp
cool.
Spider one, Swooping Hawks
Warspire woman.
one,
Yeah, that's
I don't
cool.
know anything about that.
Yeah, so Baja Roth, the Sweet Hawks one is pretty great too. Um,
and
I th-
I
I
the
mean,
think the
Howling Banshee
swooping
one.
hawk.
Hugin's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Azerman's pretty much the same.
Yeah,
I'm about to paint Jane's R, which is the Howling Banshee one.
oh, they
I,
were quite good.
the
They
Howling Banshee one
That
I
was like,
feel is one.
yeah, that was the Blood of the Phoenix one from like 2018 or whatever.
Yeah, it was quite a
Quite a
while
while.
now.
Yeah, that
But
was the
I
first one to like get
hmm
refreshed.
like the new refresh. I think the swooping hawk one is good, and I think the swooping hawks, the newer swooping hawk models, are some of the nicer ones. Partially just because since they're kind of leaping or touching down, they actually have like the tall poses that I want more Eldar to be in. Like their legs aren't spread out wide, and like they give you a sense of all Eldar could look kind of tall and sleek,
their
but
helmets have like
instead,
the
none.
visors that look like teeth, like the old Striking Scorpion.
So yeah, I think to me they're cool just in the fact that it's just like, oh, more Eldar could look this good or this cool. Like I just think their poses are cool. And I mean, sure, a bunch of them are kind of on standing on a rock type thing, but I think these work much better than most. of that
Yeah,
that
unless you want to go
idea.
like clear,
And those
like
acrylic
acrylic
rods,
arm,
like God no,
like
that's horrible.
how are you gonna do a flying unit?
Yeah, these I
But
think this looks natural and makes sense.
yeah,
And it looks less like, oh, they're leaping off of something as much.
yes.
Like I think these work pretty well.
So the I just painted, I don't know, a month or two ago. The ones around like when we graduated, so like 2005. So they were the hybrid ones that were like plastic but with metal wings. Yeah, and they're on slaughter bases, and
You
oh
miss
yeah,
slaughter bases.
oh my god, like they're
I
so
hate
bad.
slaughter bases, man.
But like, so these new ones are also much larger than the old ones. So the slaughter
Yeah,
base
that
ones
makes
were
sense.
like probably half the size of the new ones.
Yeah, okay. I guess that's not
I mean,
surprising.
size creep, but
So the only thing that I would say, and this is kind of like a about, but I do really like the fighters, but I do not like how they made all of their weapons a lot. And then
gigantic.
they designed like weapons for them as well, and you can tell they like didn't really have new ideas for them. So it's just like
Mhm.
let's make stuff like a little longer and change like the placement. Like they don't look like a distinct thing, and I don't love. And
You just
I
have
agree. I
to
mean,
embrace
I'm
it.
just happy to get a Phoenix Sword. So,
Yeah, I think
well,
that's
it's
quite
interesting. The
cool.
Phoenix Sword is probably larger than the Phoenix Lord also has the multiple like arms and stuff, but the weapons on those arms I feel are smaller than the weapons arms of the normal squad. Like why?
so that was always that way for the Exarch, at least, where they had twin weapons, but they were much smaller than normal.
But I guess I just don't understand why, or like leader of the squad, they kept the the additional set of like gun arms or whatever, but they made those guns almost as big as the one they were.
So yeah, so that's original Warp Spider,
Mhm.
and that's the Exarch.
Yeah.
They're pretty.
The side weapons that are small
Yeah.
are the same thing.
Yeah, doesn't look.
Okay.
But so yeah, like the special like X Lord model for the Warp Spiders,
Yes.
they designed smaller looking arms and so much better.
This
Yeah,
to
so
me
the smaller Death
screams.
Spinners
Yeah,
as the Power Blades, and then the I don't know what they call it,
Mhm.
but it's basically a Harkness quest. Yes, where like
Yeah, yeah.
eviscerate someone.
Well, to me this and this wasn't it the same with the how Janes are and some of these things that like it's clear that the regular howling banshees and like the Phoenix Lord were just done by different sculptors that had kind of different design parameters and they didn't really
well, one
communicate
of the reasons
much.
the Howling Banshee Phoenix Lord I thought was so good because they kind of just ignored all of the Eldar tendencies to have small butt, incredibly cinched waist, like completely unbelievable everything, but not unbelievable in like how they describe Eldar. Like just looks weird, but the Phoenix Lord model, to me, it looked like a sculptor was said, "We want you to make this new Phoenix Lord. Do what you want with it. Just make sure they still look like that character." And I would imagine there was a less. They weren't telling them like, "Oh, you need to make sure that everything is like."
And I don't think they looked like exactly to some design
No.
spec and like made sure they copied it exactly. They understood the just general design brief and had a sense of Jess Goodwin's initial concepts and so forth, and were able to translate it to their vision of that, which resulted, I think, in a better model.
But to me, one of the weird things with these new Eldar models are, I think they should be taller. Like they're
Yeah,
not much bigger than a standard like Imperial Guardsman or whatever, and they should be.
I think it would be nice if they were taller because that would also
They look more just like you, which
Yes.
weird
seems
looking
dumb.
humans. Yeah, I would have liked to like if they emphasize the fact that they're tall and slender and not human like emphasize that discrepancy. But they kind of just stayed with what they had for better or worse.
What are with the Phoenix Vikings? Really cool pose, cool model. I I feel I'd be pretty worried though. Assemble it and paint
Striking
it and act
Scorpion? Are you talking about
no
the
rather.
I kiss.
yeah,
I am really worried assemble that you break her off the scenic
the
base
floating stuff?
immediately. Um
Yeah,
because it doesn't
I
look
feel
like there are that many attachment points. So
I kind
wow.
of feel a lot of these things are like that. So many of the character models almost are made more to be some sort of spectacle set piece that you build, paint, and display and don't do anything with it.
Like I feel she would look just as cool if she was in a very tall pose and like have both of her feet on the ground. And then you wouldn't have to worry
Hmm.
that not gonna
What
fit in
almost
any
seems like
case, gonna break her
they,
off of plastic energy ever.
well, they never want to. It seems like they never want an Eldar model to look tall.
They're
Like they
always
make sure.
squatting. Okay, so
That is
That's
super
just
thin.
how it,
yeah, I think
the
Yeah,
to me it looked like the main attachment point is on the back of one of her feet. That's it. So that's a little. If you're playing this game like I would be.
That is true. That's where it is.
well, lucky for us, we don't play this game, so it's fine.
Well, actually, we should get. Oh, I have one other question. I asked about which of the Phoenix thought was best. I think it's pretty conclusive. Which I don't. Which do people think? Like, I don't even think
I don't know if I
best
remember
generally.
all of them, but the Death Jester-ish
The
one,
Death Reaper,
Malgan
horrible,
yeah,
Raw.
horrible,
they look like they're from
horrible.
Overwatch or something.
By far the worst. This one takes all of the dumb Eldar shit and brings it to a level. Like their their legs are spread apart in the most unnatural fashion possible. They're spread apart and they're standing on an surface. They're
Their guns
weaponed.
bigger than ever.
Yeah, the gun's bigger
Like
than ever. The design is dumber than ever.
it
They
looks
suck.
like it's from Overwatch, a combination between Blizzard's Overwatch
Yeah.
and
They have a
that
skull
action.
mask again, and like GW, they just can't make a fierce looking skull mask, and they failed hard.
yeah,
What's
we've talked
that
about
action?
this. Or
Or
what was
uh,
that, Greg?
I was gonna say, what's that action game about the four riders of the apocalypse?
Oh shit, yeah. They look like that character. You're right.
I, I we've touched on this in various streams and stuff, but Warhammer 40,000 is so much of its identity is with skulls and such, like the Imperium skulls everywhere. Despite that, it is astounding how Games Workshop cannot sculpt a sinister, cool looking skull mask. Like it seems, how can that be when like there are Space Marine chaplains, there are these Death Reapers, there are the Reaver, like Space
I
Marine.
still like the Terminator chaplain from like
Yeah, like there are
5 years ago.
just so many skulls and so many skull helmets and things, and they all look stupid or cartoonish and weird. And it's fine if some would look like that, but why have they essentially never made a creepy Wayne England looking skull helmet? Like Wayne England sort of, I don't know, really his art was so iconic, particularly in the third edition, with all these weird stretched skull things that really made it creepy and weird, and they just never did it.
Well, the only place they had the Wayne England skulls are all of the Forge World Terminator shoulder pads, and they sculpted them to look
Yeah,
like that's it.
Simon Egan is a good sculptor.
But yeah, so the Morgan Raw, the one I was probably one of the ones I was most excited about, and they managed to make the most Dane name hackneyed looking shit like you could
There's
imagine.
no subtlety in this
No.
design
Like
at all.
I just don't like how much cloak there is.
Yeah,
Like
And it's like it's
yeah,
a good sculpt. Like it is a good sculpt, but there's no finesse there. There's nothing interesting.
like,
Weapons.
well, let's just make the gun bigger and bigger. Yeah, there it is. You have it. Lucky you. Like, let's give him a big spinal column that's sticking up because we need to make that bigger. Let's put more magazines on him somewhere. Yeah,
When
it's
like the
just
weapon's
more,
so
more,
big,
more.
and then the magazine fueling it like the same size as like an Eldar Guardian rifle or something. Like what the fuck? Like it's a
Yeah, bad design. Bad
model
design.
sense. um, I I like almost all the other ones are
There it is.
good.
So
They're
cool.
good, but there are some details that I think better. Like I wish
yeah.
Janzar not floating hair.
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
that's fine.
I mean, my biggest thing is the Averman with the giant sickle magazines sticking off his
Yeah, it's
arms.
like
Like,
there was a reason the original wasn't like that
yeah, it looks so bad.
because it looks bad.
Well, some of it is just like maybe it is sort of a gaming purpose. It's just like we want everyone to know he has guns in his hand, on his wrists, and they're like,
But my
we just
problem with it
don't need
is
that.
the model that came out looked like the conversions people were doing for years
Mm-hmm.
of like making a new Azerman. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, legit, that model's from what, mid 90s, probably. Um, and that is also another weird thing is the Dire Avengers are not refreshed.
No, they're
Yeah, they're
very
quite old now.
well. Thing is with that this like it would just look much better if you just cut the magazine like rounded out the
I agree.
tops. Like it would. I mean, I still wouldn't like it. I would still think guns are too big, but
Just remove the guns entirely.
at least
The
can look down the barrel of the
Yeah,
weapon and like that's
the magazines make it look ridiculous to me. Like it's one thing, like, oh yeah, this guy has a gun on his wrist, but then you have a giant snickle magazine sticking out. And
like
This
he
is
could have. He just don't. But and this model is also he has his legs spread really wide, and then they're on different like different angled blocks like that. I would think there are
as they
people,
can.
but there are people who
mm-hmm.
want to like base their models like their own way, and like the amount of work and effort you have to change one of these models be extreme. Um,
You just don't. You just won't do it,
yeah, you
and
just
that's
do
fine.
it because
It's too much.
when then
Well, it's almost getting back to the monopose thing where like
Yeah.
they're not making that easy to customize anymore.
and even like I'm looking at Mystic Warlocks, like literally all of them are standard rocks. The
I
fuck?
That's
think
Eldar's
everything's staying on
thing.
rocks anymore, aren't they?
I think pretty
Yeah.
much everything.
How else would you know it's a character model?
It,
Character model, Adam. That's dynamic. That's cool. That's cool.
like
We love it.
yeah, essentially almost pretty much everything. Pretty much all of their character models they are standard.
Yep.
Stone,
Well,
orange.
maybe we've reached the end of our talking points
So
about
one,
this.
actually, um, the Young Banshees Exarch has a avatar of Kane head on space as the new
Huh.
avatar.
Really?
Like they planned it
That's
ahead of time.
interesting. Huh. Okay.
I
That's
realized that
That's
when I was just painting it. I'm like, oh,
hmm.
that's
yeah, same size, same shape.
actually the Howling Banshee plastics. They actually on their pistol. It's such a magazine. And the pistol.
That's
That's what.
fun.
That's. I would say that's
Makes
probably
more sense.
better. Makes more. It'll look.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, it looks better. They're still too big. I feel.
It's
Step in.
still a better design.
I know it's part of like the fact that the idea of these magazines is they slice off super thin
Mm-hmm.
sections, and that is the actual ammo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So technically, a magazine gets shorter as a suit.
But the thing that makes it weird though is like, why do they have? I guess.
We don't need to think engineering on this.
Also, one
It
of the
is
other
what
things
it
that
is.
I find is we. Why do like the new Howling Band on their elbows?
You
They
don't get
have
it.
this
The
new
blades,
like bladed
you don't get
piece
it.
of armor, so it's like you'll run into shit.
I hate it when I'm painting them. Like I'm like, is this supposed to be metal? Is it supposed to be like armor?
Yeah,
Like
what is
they
it?
just paint it like it's the arm.
Yes,
It's weird. Or
Hmm.
do they all have that? Or are there?
yes, all of them do.
That's
That's a
All of
shame.
them do. I'm painting them right now, so I am well familiar. They all have.
Yeah, well aware of this design.
Yeah,
Huh. Well,
and I question it. I'm like,
why has this happened?
is it some of is it it's just and the bladed thing on there is it just on the arm holding the sword?
yes.
The fuck? That's even worse.
Adam, that is cool. It's
That's even
cool.
worse. Why?
Well, I mean, the best thing is the XR, where I optioned her to have two swords,
Oh my.
hmm
and she has it on both.
No, that is the arm they hold. They have maybe that little armor plate slots out of their elbow or whatever to tell enemy that they're going. It's really weird. Like to me, that's
Yeah,
just
something
like they
else.
wanted to add an additional detail, but they
Yeah,
didn't
it's
really have
why it's there, right?
they didn't have
Flourish for no reason.
they didn't have ideas for like
Yeah.
Yeah.
let's just
But I mean, that was the first true refresh and new Phoenix Sword.
hmm
I'm trying to give them some grace.
like
Yeah, so they're
what
just
I
they're
remember
just
when they
trying to
came
find their
out.
style.
I remember when they came out together, and it's like Phoenix Lord really good, really good, and then the Aspect Warrior is like eh, guess they're
They're not
better.
better than they were, though. Like, especially if you look back at the metal ones, like, it's so much better.
Yeah,
Yeah, so regardless, they all
But,
needed a redesign just to get it such that they were easier to assemble and
yeah.
have, even if they didn't always like make big strides for making them like quote unquote cooler. Well, so we've been now chatting for about an hour about this stuff. Maybe it's time to pull it to a close. Do you have any final words of wisdom about the Eldar chat or anything you're particularly excited to do with them or what you hope to see next or just anything you'd like to add?
I mean, coming into the hobby back in the metal, very early classic days, it's great to see that they are finally getting a refresh. Um,
100%.
yeah, like that old metal Warwalker I
oh,
have
Ooh.
is impossible to keep together.
Yeah.
The new plastic ones are better. Like it's just the
hmm
evolution of hobby. It's good to see it finally reach the Eldar. It's not just Space Marine, Space Marine, Space Marine, Space Marine.
More
But yeah,
lieutenants.
always.
hmm
yeah,
Yeah, no, and I think it's anyone trying to get into or interested in the Eldar. It's so much easier to like not have to find some fine cast crap or
I mean, yeah,
things of
fine
this
cast. Let's
nature.
not even do that. But um,
that
just
happened.
even like the Avatar,
hmm
the the old Avatar is so small versus the new one. Like it's half the height.
yeah,
I
yeah,
guess
it's
The new one is a fantastic model, by the way.
hmm
painted one, right?
I did.
that's cool.
Actually, did you assemble any uncast models, Chad, or did you like steer
Oh,
clear of that shit? Okay.
now I've caught them trying to do older stuff, but yeah,
Yeah, because
they suck.
they suck hard. Like I remember we did not buy many uncast models. Really only a handful. And I have still to this day never finished assembling them. It
I
was a
feel it's the
dark
type of
day
thing
for the
you
hobby, and I sort of feel like there are a lot of people now in the hobby came in after that, and good for them.
yeah, which is good to just never
Agreed,
have
but
known
I
that.
so something I've been seeing online is people like prefer fine cast over metal. I'm the opposite.
Yeah,
Metal
nah,
does suck to work with. I would much
It
rather
does.
have the metal.
Yeah,
yeah,
fine cast is that bad.
It's that bad.
it's
Because
it
I
sure
remember
is.
when they first came out, it's like, oh, they maybe it was like they only one of the Dark Eldar models. Like almost all of the Dark Eldar models had been released, like the characters stuff had been released in metal, except for maybe it was like the homunculus, some shit. And so I remember going to the store, looking like 4 or 5 listers of the model, trying to find the one that was least shitty, that had the least like air bubble, like missing tail and stuff. And it's like, well, I think this is the best one. And then get buying it, getting it home, opening it, and it's like, oh, that part model. I'll just put it
Yeah,
in the
I've seen that
box.
especially with like trying to buy like eBay stuff.
Yeah, you.
Mm-hmm.
So bad.
Wow, yeah, buying shit on eBay for that would, yeah, just bad. Really hard to do. Well, I don't know. I'm glad you're been working with it, painting and assembling the models. It's nice to see and hear about it, and yeah, just nice that the Eldar haven't been completely forgotten for Space Marine lieutenants.
It is.
Yeah, exactly. Big new upgrade now. So
Yeah, it's good. That's good. Well, all right. Well, thank you for being here. It was fun chatting, and thanks everybody for listening. And we hope to talk to you all again soon. See ya.
Are there any Eldar things? Maybe.
Fire Avengers is probably the biggest one. I mean, they're not bad though.
Yeah, they're okay.
Yeah, they're okay.
But yeah, that's the last one. I mean, unless you get into like I don't know, the ones where it's like a fighter jet and
Yeah, so that's thing. Like, I guess the Phoenix Lord for Ash.
yeah, I
Maybe.
think they're going to come out within like a year or so. But
And that could either
so
mean they'll be a lot better or a lot worse.
who
I hope.
knows?
I think they'll probably be better.
I bet
But I'm
they'll.
hopefully once I get them all painted up, I can do a
No comparison, like
old
side by side.
new comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That would be.
Yeah, that would
because I
be
still have your
fun.
Azerman.
Yeah, like. I. Well, actually, I. Was it Striking Scorpion that I
Or
started to
Andros.
paint?
Yeah, the pink one.
Pink one. So I should. When they finally release the Striking Scorpion one, we should. I should get the model, convert it to a stage where I think it's cool, and then actually paint that model.
Love it.
um,
That would be fun.
because like I sort of feel like for a lot of these, like I could see myself. Like some of them, I feel you could make some small changes. It would look better. Um,
That's one of my things. Like I don't convert really. I just paint. So
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. Kind of.
well, when you
Yeah, it's fun.
um assemble fire event
Azerman.
Azerman, but all, but all. That's what. And like a nice round.
It looks so bad.
It would be like
I
isn't
mean, honestly, the model's not that much different other than those magazines.
that is
Yeah.
isn't uh
What are you saying?
the sculptor of that model on Instagram painting said model. What he was. Oh, he already did. Yep, the magazine. Thought that's
So
also
bad.
the the original model. I feel had a much more interesting like face on, like again, much more kind of see up on very like Egyptian like turn,
I thought the new one was more detailed.
not like the like actual face, like the mouth, and looks looks a little lame to me.
Well, no one asked you, Adam.
They are
Yeah, I
very
like the old one more.
like the old one. Actually, it actually had a sculpted nose. Yeah, and like these very thin, like fierce looking teeth. That is at least weird. Like I don't know if
Yeah,
I loved it, but it was at least weird. The newer one is
It's
very.
sort of flat.
It's sort of just very
Yeah, it's
lifeless.
interesting.
I gotcha. Yep.
It's not bad looking, but
It seems weird that that would be when they're so or try to be so true to most of the designs. It seems weird that that would have been changed. It almost is like, it's a little too hard to do those little teeth. Let's just not. I
I mean,
don't know.
I
Well,
don't. I also like. I kind of liked how the had really new one.
Yeah, they're huge.
New ones are probably scaled a lot
not
better.
big enough. Well,
I gotcha.
is what it is.
I want to say though, Adam, you're in painting back in like 2005.
Yeah, look at that.
It's impressive.
Yeah, like it wasn't horrible. Actually, what paint do you use? Dad? Do you use like GW paint or what? Typically,
I only do GW.
okay. Like most of their paint lines,
My problem is whites.
white is. I think
Their
just
white sucks.
You
I
should get Pro Acryl White. It's pretty good.
I've got army painter matte white.
Okay, I don't, yeah, I can't comment on how that is, but Pro Acryl's paint line, their white is quite good. And I think it's why they even started making paints to begin with. They wanted to make a better white.
Yeah, whites
More
get
like kind of
get
a
like chalky. Like
like I think most white paints, like the pigment is just it's bigger. So like
it's too much solids.
yeah, and it like that's even true with some like flesh paints, like the lighter flesh tone.
Yeah.
hmm
Yep. But you get some like pots of whatever white, and they are chalk. Like they are terrible.
I just, I would like to say made it right and they catch it and it out for either that or
Yeah. People don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I have a vortexer,
Oh, that's good.
and
idea.
that doesn't even fix it.
Not enough. Yeah, okay. Well,
Yeah, the
I mean,
Pro
I
Acryl.
transfer everything into dropper bottles.
That's a good.
okay.
Like,
Yeah, I've done it with some of mine. Yeah, because you actually have those nice paint racks. That's cool.
That is
Or nail polish racks that serve as paint
That's
racks,
exactly what
perhaps.
they are.
Yeah, I mean that's
Nail
cute. Like
polish
that's
racks.
nice. They that works well.
So it's really easy with the contrast because they're so thin.
Oh yeah.
I put those in the bigger bottles. But some of
Hmm.
these other paints, like transferring, is a pain.
Yeah, because it's just they're so thick and whatnot and
Yeah.
viscous. Yeah.
It's like shoving a toothpick into a funnel again and again.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, actually getting pretty.
Yeah, I should go to bed.
Say, I should probably get to bed.
Yeah.
I have to be in at work in 6.5 hours. So
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Well,
makes
thank
sense.
you for that. It's been chatting.
of course.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll
have
have
to
to
have
do
you
it
on
again.
again. Maybe when they release pictures of Striking Scorpion Phoenix Lord, and we can discuss what needs to change on the model. How I'm
Absolutely. It's
going
gonna
to
be the
change
guns
it.
are too big.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's
many
I mean
blasters are gonna
100%.
be gigantic.
And their
They're gonna be
pose with
standing on a rock.
yeah.
They'll be standing
Of
on a
course.
rock, really wide. Hence, they won't have a
Gigantic.
butt.
Yeah.
Yeah. All things to look forward to. All right.
Well,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
thanks. It was
Thanks
fun.
everybody for joining. Thanks for enjoying.
Mhm.
Always safe, stay healthy.